Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? Welcome back to episode number 3 of Bankers, Bandits, Bullion, and Bucks with Bryce. So, for everybody out there, this is kind of an evolving thing. We're kind of feeling it out as we go. We're going to be doing a bunch of different things, trying different things, sharing new tools, different ideas, that kind of stuff with you guys. As always, you can follow along what we're doing on whatsupcanada.org for sure. And having a little bit of trouble with lgm.news this week because we're starting to plug in a bunch of the new developments that we've been using over there. So you won't be getting us on there today. But as always, follow us on one of our platforms, get connected. Bryce, if you have been living under a rock, is one of our partners at New World Precious Metals, who is a group that we've been working with for a few months now to help people provide solutions, protect yourselves financially. Bryce lives in the precious metals world and the finance world, and all of the things that go sideways in the world impact that. So this is why we decided to tie him into a weekly show to come in and talk with you guys and share all the stuff that he knows and is learning. And yeah, so thanks for finding another Friday to come and hang out with a bunch of crazy Canadians that think the world's gone mad.
Hey, well, if you don't think the world's going mad right now, I would have to say you are crazy because all of the evidence points to it obviously is.
Well, and that's, it doesn't get any more basic than that. I think you have to be living in a cave to not understand and know that everything has gone totally sideways on the planet. So tonight, one of the things that you mentioned after the last show, Bryce, and this is a message I want to get everybody out there. This show is for you guys. We're doing this for you guys. We want your feedback. We want your communication and your engagement. So we really want to start bringing that into the show. So if you guys have got questions, comments, information, things that you want to know, don't hesitate for a second. Throw it into the comments, and Bryce has. I've given him the reins here on this. He can interrupt anytime he wants when he sees a comment in any of the chat threads to address. He's going to do so. So don't be shy, folks. Get involved, get engaged, and we'll try and get you some help.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me back. It's always a pleasure. I actually really enjoy this, and this is actually helping me kind of organize a whole bunch of stuff that's been happening in the world right now into something that's a little bit easier to digest. So it's helpful and useful for me too, because there's a lot of stuff happening in the world right now, and I think this is a kind of a summarized version to deal with some of it.
well, I think what it does is the everybody out there is feeling completely under siege, completely under a barrage, and the what's important today and the top of discussion isn't necessarily the same thing tomorrow. So it really helps us to tackle week by week the things that we can see and help out with and maybe address for folks and clarify on occasion. So this is really what I'm hoping to develop this into is something that provides a wider spectrum of answers. People, before meeting up with you guys, the question I got most was, how do I protect myself from the bank bail-ins? That was the number one thing that I had no answer for, because I mean, and I'm still learning every day, but understanding that the currency and all of the things around the world impact all of that immensely, and we're not necessarily getting the information we need. And that's one of the interesting things to me. The most interesting thing about this, Bryce, getting you on every week, is you are only successful by understanding that which the legacy and the establishment calls conspiracy theory.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if there is anything more credible that we could be doing would to debunk the theory from the conspiracy, you're the guy.
Well, I hope so. I like to base a lot of what I do off of a hard reality, and I'm kind of coining that term because there is a lot of I don't want to say disinformation because that's a disingenuous term, but there's a lot of information out there, right? And is the only the ultimate question with information is it accurate, is it true, and is it relevant to whatever is being discussed, right? There's no disinformation in that. You can say you can have whatever opinion you want, but your opinion is based on conclusions, evidence, analysis, right? That's the type of stuff that matters and that I care about, right? So even if you're completely wrong, like that's not disinformation, you're just wrong, right? The only difference is if somebody's lying to you, right? That's malinformation or whatever nonsense they're using these days. But ultimately, if you're saying something to me, it doesn't matter what your agenda is. I need to be able to look at it and say whether or not it's true. How did you come to this conclusion? Why are you telling me? What's it doing? Why are you saying it? Right? These are all questions that surround the actual information itself. Right? And so, what the government and many tech companies are doing these days is like, oh, that's hate speech or that's disinformation or malinformation or whatever nonsense word they're using. That's basically what they're saying when they say that is, I don't agree with that. Because if it was incorrect, all you would have to do is show me how it's incorrect, right? Like the answer to this disinformation isn't censorship, it's better information and better analysis and better conclusions, right? So anybody that ever says hate speech or any of these other censorship bullshit words, that's the answer. They are authoritarian, and the answer to that is show me your work, bro.
Well, it's so absurd, and to me, I encapsulate it with there is no hate in this. This is just me saying, and I may get hate for this. I don't care. Teresa Tam is a biological man. He can identify as whatever he wants. That does not make my interpretation of the information at my disposal misinformation, malinformation, or hate speech. It is none of those things. I live in the real world where if that whatever it is going to come at me, I am going to address it in the fact that it's a reality I perceive. I don't live in the Avatar universe. It's not mal or misinformation or hate speech, and this is where we have to live now. It is defining ourselves by what is reality and what is not, and their experts do not make them an expert of anything other than the absurd. And I'm sorry, but if I listen and make decisions based on the absurd, I would be carving myself up, calling myself something different, looking for a career in a different gender field, and probably starving to death with 14 scars in my arm from jabs. So I mean, anyways, that's me just venting and ranting.
Well, it's a good point, and there's a really old saying that is if you can make somebody believe absurdities, you can make them commit atrocities, and that's really the underpinning of a lot of cultural revolutions in history. Is that hey, those are the bad people, and we got to kill them to save whatever we're talking about on our side, whatever our side is, right? And that's
That
what the communists are doing right now.
That is exactly where we are at. They
Yeah.
are making kids believe things and committing atrocities under those beliefs, and we're
They're
supposed to.
sterilizing children. How did you get people to the point where like let's sterilize children? It's insane.
How do we get to the point where you're depressed, it's okay to self-terminate? The government will
With the
support
government's
you
help.
to, yeah, with the government's help. Or it's just these are everyday atrocities that stem from the absurdities, and I just have zero patience for any of it anymore whatsoever. uh, um, which the absurdities, and this is I'm going to tie this in a way you probably didn't expect. uh the absurdities to me this week, over the past week, was people
There are
actually
many.
expecting a vote of non-confidence to pass in the House that Pierre Polyev was going to call. Kudos, Pierre, for
Yeah,
chirping like a
I've been
chihuahua. But
yeah.
anybody that expected that, that it was going to be effective, there is an example of political absurdity,
But
in my opinion.
Oh, totally. And this is actually a really great example of statecraft in the sense of political theater, because it forced a couple things. Because one of the things that there's a huge number of people across the country, myself included, obviously, that are against the carbon tax because it's abysmally stupid, it's ineffective, it's straight up theft. I could go on and on about how stupid the carbon tax is, but what this forced them to do is every one of the other parties had to stand up and say, I support taxing Canadians more than we should at a time where they can't afford it, right? And to add to that absurdity, the RCMP had that report that came out that says, yeah, people might revolt because they don't have any money left. And this is a week before the carbon tax goes up 23%, as we don't already have enough money in the country, and yada yada yada. But on the same day, on April Fool's Day, that they're going to give themselves a raise, and they must have done it on April Fool's because they're like, you must be fools. Like Canada must be full of fools to accept this absolute insanity. Like it's
That
insane.
that is going to go down as a historic marker point for history. People are going to remember April Fools with the Canadian flag, because we are absolutely 37 million fools here in this country.
40 million.
40 million. I can't keep up.
Yeah, well, they brought in
Neither
such
can housing or the economy or anything else, mind you. But this is again another one of these absurdities of political theater that you. I think that this behooves Canadians, and I haven't seen the votes yet, but I intend to look at those, and I think that I'm going to be sending a message to every single one of them that did not support this non-confidence vote. I see you've pulled something up there. I'll pull it up here for you.
Yeah, so I was absolutely fuming this week. I have had enough of this insane government with their insane policies, C63, all the other dumb things they're doing. And so I got banned off of LinkedIn, so I can't talk like this on LinkedIn anymore because I used to, and that's why I got banned from it. But on Twitter, I can basically say whatever I want now. And this is one of the things that really put me over the edge, in the sense that I was like, I got to say something about this, right? So this is the post that I made about the carbon tax, because the thing that gets me, I don't know if anybody's been following the Arrive scam debacle, but these people are literally sitting there in not parliament, in committee, like Christian Firth and his other the other bozo of GC Strategies, and then Dalian came in last week. They have literally taken millions of dollars, skimmed off of government contracts for doing no work, and some of that money has gone to the people in the government. This is because I study China quite a bit. This is the structure that China uses to control its population. So essentially what they do is they take all of the money from the population. They actually have a name for it. It's called harvesting the leaks. And they take that money and it goes into government coffers, or state-owned enterprises, which is essentially what Trudeau is building right now, is state-controlled apparatus. And they finance all of the people in the government, so they all shut up and fall in line. Be like, hey, we'll give you a bunch of money, we'll take care of you, you do whatever you want, you live the high life, but as long as you do what you're told and you shut the hell up, you can do whatever you want, right? And so now, and this is why what gets me so amped about this is one glaring example of $60 million being misappropriated, defrauded out of Canadians' pockets, and they're defending it. They had to be dragged kicking and screaming, and they're still defending it. This is the most textbook example of corruption possible. And the upshot to this is they printed $700 billion. And just so everybody, because I did the math yesterday, because I was pissed about this, that's $17,000 printed in your name for each person in this country. And that doesn't even include the people that are working. So if you're like, don't even count kids or the retired or whatever, it's more than that. But $17,000. What did we get for that? We got insane amounts of inflation. We got a recession coming. We got authoritarian policies. We got the most incompetent people running the country in our history for doubling our debt. Like it's unbelievable. And now, because and to take it back to what we were saying earlier, and now that Pierre stood up and said no confidence vote, all of the other parties are now endorsing all of Trudeau's mishaps and corruption and all this other garbage, right? And what I kind of want to get to this point with, and then I'll hand it back, is where is the threshold in any country, but ours specifically, since we're in Canada, that all of the citizens of the country say enough is enough? What does it take to remove a government that is no longer representing the people? if let's say it's 100%, if 100 people stood up tomorrow and said, I don't want this government representing me anymore. What is the actual process to remove that government peacefully, right? Because this is Canada. We shouldn't have to have a revolution to get rid of this moron, right? But the way that our political system is set up is that Pierre stood up and said, "Hey, most people don't want this. We don't have confidence in the government anymore." And all of the other parties stood up and said, "Yes, we do. Sit down." But that's not, it's ridiculous.
And that's to me the what people have to understand needs to be the final uncovering. The final straw is to, with this specific vote, and this is not even talking about the carbon tax, it's not even talking about the raise. That was the blatant spit in the face that not one of those people that did not support that call to election to go to the people, every single person on that list must be replaced by every peaceful civil means possible. They have to be afraid to walk the streets amongst the peers that they have now sentenced to giving them a raise and making a 23% increase in cost of living in carbon tax, foisting that upon the people. Like they haven't had enough billions and billions of dollars to piss away and steal. This is absolute blatant corruption, and I think this needs to be a topic on the world stage. Those people need to live in fear of not being able to exist without the public vitriol which they have earned foisted upon them. And I saw something that I was chirping about a year ago. We have, if you're a business owner and you have the right to refuse service to criminals and crooks in your store, if your member of or your elected representative punched this through, put their name on the front door of your business and your store like they were a fraudster, a rubber check deliverer, a thief, like they stole from you, and make it be known to the public that they are not welcome in your store because they are literally trying to kill your store, and they will succeed. They will succeed if we don't stop this insanity. Again, the absurdity. It's beyond insanity. It's straight up absurdity.
It is, and this actually goes significantly beyond just Canada, because what it really amounts to is everybody in the Western world is facing this problem. The oligarchy and the communists that are serving them have basically decided that now's the time we're making a move for 2030, right? That's their kind of timeline. They're making their moves now, right? And so this year, 2024, is supposed to have like 1 billion people or 2 billion people or some such number in the Western world, or like the global democracies that are voting, right? And I've made this point before, and Trudeau actually put forward their electoral changes this week as well. So much happened this week; it's crazy, and they want to scale up. Pardon me. They want to scale up mail-in voting, which is basically a recipe for election fraud. Like, how could you verify anything? Like, that should be illegal. How can you possibly have a system where you can't verify if somebody should be there and is able to vote, or did vote, or voted twice, or like there's no checks and balances, right? With AI and all the crazy stuff that they have the ability to do now, the only way to guarantee that somebody's vote isn't being zeroed out is that it has to be in person. Those votes can't go anywhere. Those votes have to be counted on camera, and the process for qualifying has to be citizens only, especially since we have so much illegal migration happening right now as well. But like, these are like basic things that the government is not only not trying to fix, they're trying to make it worse. So like, how would we ever verify a mail-in voting system? Like, how would you verify that ever?
Well, and that one of the other things that you're right, a lot happened this week, and it's almost impossible to keep track of. They also, I've discovered this week, are trying again to alter the parameters of mental illness. For example, if you are a jab denier, you are mentally ill.
Yeah. And this is why they're adding that to MAID, because eventually they're gonna be like, hey, you're mentally ill, you're dangerous to other people, we're going to sign you up for MAID. And this is one of the core reasons that's got to be opposed too, is because that is their ultimate goal. It is an extermination process of people that are dissidents. This is exactly what they do in China. This is communist policy.
This is Bill C-63,
Yeah.
C-11. All of these things are giving themselves the justification to label us mentally ill and dangerous. And it's MAID balances the budget. That's literally their stance is MAID
Yeah.
balances the budget. And if you're not willing to take part in the pharma transhuman future, then you are a threat and a danger to all. There was a question that came up here on Rumble. I'm going to pull that up here for you, Bryce, and
Oh,
let you
I looked at that one
touch
too.
on
That was a
that
good
one.
one.
Yeah. Hit it up.
So TFSAs, you can think of them essentially like cash accounts, right? So when I explain precious metals, this is how I explain them, and then I'll get to the RSP in a sec. So when you think of money, right? Money is supposed to be the intermediary between resources, right? So the original one was precious metals. Originally it was barter, but then it moved to precious metals because it was something that wasn't easily duplicatable, right? So it was something that had a process behind it that everybody universally agreed that this was valuable, so we could trade resources in between ourselves, right? And so that's where it started. And so the best case scenario for protecting your wealth is having physical gold in your hand, right? And because that's always going to hold its value, it's not connected to the financial system in the sense that it's not backed by anything physical, right? On the other end of that process is stuff like RSPs and TFSAs, which is in the system, right? So when you have an RSP and you have a TFSA, that is essentially a government registered account that's in the banking system. So they take that and they leverage that and investments, and that's what they do with it. It's like we give you a little bit of investment money and make a little bit of money off of it for yourself, and then we take that and invest it long term, so we make more money off of it. So there's a profit factor for the bank and the government. That's how that system works, right? Because that's retirement savings, right? And the you have the least amount of control with that sort of stuff. So is there a potential that will go bad when the systems goes bad? Yes. So it's not that safe. I don't trust. I don't invest in RSPs because I'm 37 now, and when I looked at this stuff years ago, I'm like, I'm never going to see this money when I retire. I'm going to invest it myself, and I don't. If I invest it myself, what do I need the government for, right? If I make good investments and I do well, what do I need you for, right? The whole idea behind registered retirement savings funds is that you couldn't do it yourself. We'll help you out, right? Here's a nice simple structure. You don't have to understand. You put your money in there, it's safe. We'll take care of you, basically, is the idea behind that. Works for some people, and if we weren't on a borrowed time with how the economy is going, it would have been fine long term, as long as we had more people coming in to replace the people that were retiring. Lots of problems behind that. Don't need to get into them. Basically, that money long term isn't going to be there because the math just doesn't make sense. So what you can do with RSPs is you can back them by gold. But the thing that I always say to people when they ask me about how do I protect my wealth is really simple. How do you survive? Right? That is the number one question. How do you survive? Right? Do you have enough food? Do you have enough water? Do you have your own place? Do you have tools? Do you have a business? Do you have something that produces something that other people will find valuable? Right? That's number one. Right? And if you don't have any of those things, don't buy gold and silver. Right? You need to buy and make sure do you have the things that are going to keep you alive? And I'll stress this point a little bit because it's important. You are at war, not because you declared war or that you're in a war, is because somebody declared war on you, right? And the people that are doing this, the global oligarchs, the Chinese Communist Party, all the idiots running the world, right? They have told us multiple times already that they want to take all of our stuff and put us in 15-minute cities. Well, if you don't like that, you better do something to prevent them from being able to control you through food or your job or your capital or whatever, right? And the more things that you can do to prevent them from being able to control you, the better. Gold and silver is one of them, but the number one is having food and water so that they can't just force you into a bread line where they can control you, because that's what happened in the 30s. Nobody had backup. Nobody had resources and assets and stuff, and they were at the mercy of the state, right? And that happened. If that happens again, it's not going to be good because they're going to have central bank digital currencies, digital IDs, all these other crazy things that we're dealing with now. So number one, get hard assets. Number two, put it in gold and silver. And number three, if you can afford it, is invest in things that are creating value.
Uh, Awesome answer. So another comment here that something that happened this week that I think probably, if people aren't aware of, they should be paying attention to is the differences in treatment by the policing towards peaceful protesters in Newfoundland versus protesters for Palestine in any other part of the country. That is one that I wish I could say that I would see going differently, but I do not. If you are a Canadian petitioning or protesting against Canadian issues, I think you can expect a police force response for anything that is not or that for anything that's outside of pro Palestine in Canada right now. That vote that they had in the House, I think, was another clear indicator of who our establishment actually fears the most, and it's not you or me, John Q. Canadian. Um, Another comment here that I wanted to pull up. Thanks, Chris, for putting this up there. Obviously, you're involved with the class action suit for people that had their bank accounts seized. I think that's something.
Extrajudicially.
Yeah. Arbitrarily and maliciously, we could add a whole bunch of these into that one. Um, just
And
going.
and if I may, I think there's a good point to be made on that. So one of the battlefields, if you will, on this war of ours that we're fighting here, is the lawfare facility, or sorry, the lawfare. What do you call it? Angle, I guess, is that there are people that are using law to increase their level of control on all of us, right? And there's something to be said for organization of a lot of people, right? Crowdfunding is a really powerful idea. And I think the convoy really drove home a really simple idea, is that there's a lot of people, even with very little resources, that when they say, hey, enough is enough, that's something that I believe in, I'm going to support. Lots of good can happen with that. The convoy, you got to remember, raised $10 million twice, right? They got shut down twice, but that's $10 million that was raised almost like that, right? You got to remember that even if we had $10 per person in Canada, that's still a good $300 million that we could probably raise fairly easily if there was a purpose and a goal and a whatever that we believed in enough to put our money to. And so one of the things that you can confidently put your money towards that will work on defending your rights from that aspect of lawfare is the JCCF. I've donated to them myself. I've met John Carpe, really good guy. And they have hundreds of cases that are going right now, and that's one of the things that they do is they defend Canadians for their constitutional rights. There's a couple other organizations as well, but the JCCF, if you haven't heard of them before, you can go check them out. Really, really good bunch of people that are lawyers. They don't like all the bullshit that's happening, and they put their money where their mouth is, and they don't. Most of what they get, they put towards fighting some of these battles for us.
I got a follow up here for the first question that we brought up there for you. If people have got their P's and Q's covered, but they've still got stuff in the system.
Yeah, that's a good question. That basically comes down to a question of can you afford it and do you need the income? So I had somebody ask me a very similar question was, I've got a whole bunch of precious metals already, but I kind of need this consistent income. And it's a simple question. And it comes down to this. Would you rather that money be in the government's hands or your hands? You paid that money basically tax free already. So you haven't been taxed on it, right? So even if you get you have to take a 30% haircut on that. That's taxes that you pretty much would have paid on it anyways. You just haven't paid them yet. So when people ask me this type of question, personally, I would take it out of the system because the system's at its pretty much its death throes right now. The only thing that's really propping it up is pumping of money into the system. And at some point, that's going to stop. And keep in mind that we're about to escalate World War III significantly. There was an attack on Moscow today. Actually, I don't know if anybody's heard about that yet, but yeah, there was a major attack in Moscow today, and France this week as well has stated that they're putting troops in Ukraine. So NATO is going boots on the ground in Ukraine very soon. So at some point, all of the things that have been simmering under the hood are going to explode. And when that happens, things are going to get crazy. So if you want to prepare for the stuff that's coming, get all of the resources, skills, and assets you can together now, and make sure that you have control of them, right? Because anything that you don't control beyond a certain level of distance. So as an example, right, one of our things that we do is a wholesale program in a private vault. That private vault is outside the banking system, so it can't be seized by the government in that sense, but it's still in a vault outside of your city. So there's a couple benefits to that, but it's always going to be better for you to have personal control over it, because somebody will have to come to your door and take it from you.
Well, I just before going live with the show here, I did see that apparently ISIS has claimed responsibility for the attack in Russia, which kind of makes me giggle
What?
when when you understand the hierarchy of those kinds of things. ISIS is an American
Yeah.
counteragency funded entity, so it kind of makes sense. I hate to admit it, because I was wondering who would have the guts to do that, except an American proxy, you know, of some sort, and then apparently that is who's claiming taking the credit for it. I
Just
just
out of
want to.
nowhere, we haven't heard about ISIS for years, and all of a sudden they're
I
like, you
know,
know what?
right?
We got to attack Russia.
Yeah, of all places, now they want to pick a war with Russia. Sorry, Shar. I'm sorry if you find this as a doom show. To me, I find this um, inspiring and uplifting, because to be able to talk without pretending to smell the flowers, without self-censoring, because I'll tell you, it doesn't matter where I do see victories and I see good things happening, but I still see things heading way, way worse before they're going to get better. And we're not going to be able to fix anything if we continue to pretend like things are going to come up roses all on their own. So
Yeah.
uh,
Eh,
it's reality. It's reality. And just coming out here and blowing smoke up people's butts, that's not serving anybody, in my opinion.
Yeah, and let me speak to that a little bit, because I understand the sentiment. There's a lot of people that if speak a lot of this stuff, they've never heard it before. It's very uncomfortable to really think about the implications of what this all means, right? But I'm not black pilled, right? I am absolutely 100% believing that we have the ability to change this, because ultimately all of these problems are man made. Ultimately, all of these problems have been allowed because we, the people, have given up our civic duties and farmed them out essentially to people that are not on our side, right? That was a choice. Ignorance is a choice in the age of information, right? And when we have I don't want to say opportunity, but we have the ability to organize and make better choices. We have the ability to organize. We absolutely have the technology that we need. The real question is whether or not we're going to do anything about it to stop these people. Because ultimately, if somebody comes and tells you, which they have, I'm going to take all of your stuff and I'm going to put you in a cage and I'm going to tell you what to do, you have a choice on whether or not you're going to say yes or no to that, right? And this has been said dozens of times over the last few years that somebody is actively doing that, right? If anybody comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm going to go and kill your kids," what are you going to do about that as the defender of your kids? You're going to do whatever it takes. And that might mean hurting other people, right? But that's what a war is. War is a winner take all game that if you don't fight, you die, right? And I've gone way past the point of giving a shit about whether or not people get offended or people can't handle it anymore. The time for political correctness and like being polite about this stuff is over. They tried to take all of our possessions, and they're trying to do that, and they tried to lock us in a cage. They destroyed our economy, and they want to take everything that we hold dear. Are you going to do something about that or not?
It's that's literally it, and when you were talking there, it kind of brought up this analogy in my brain. We have literally given a placeholder body our credit cards, our bank cards, and our identification to go and stand in line for us, in this civic duty and responsibility line, and we've checked out on that person standing in line in the queue on our behalf, and they're out there playing in the World's Fair with our futures and tomorrow spending it, gambling it, and people and racking up debts. And people are coming for everything that we have and that we have built. And to understand the difference between war and conflict, that is very different. People, and it's the same thing when people talk about World War III. There is no World War III. There is no nuclear conflict. There is one day, one nuclear event, and it's all over. And so praying we don't get to that point of stupidity, but humanity seems intent on proving us wrong. We have been too close there before, and like I said, we've got these placeholders that have got our futures in their pockets, and we're out working like slaves to keep the ball rolling, and they're playing this game with our futures, and we have to take responsibility, us, we the people. And if we don't want to be herded up and put on trains, it's got to happen pretty damn skippy, because people are running out of the ability to even survive. And this is going to
By
get
design.
exponentially worse in the next coming months. Even some outside pundits are starting to admit that what's happening with the U.S. dollar is not good. They're admitting, not just de-dollarization. It isn't just a word. This BRICS, it isn't just an idea. This is literally the collective world coming to take what we have, and we've been infiltrated by a whole bunch of corrupt being individuals, and are literally feeding it to the pirates.
Yeah, and kind of on the financial front, so BRICS specifically, what they're doing right now is essentially making a process where they don't need U.S. dollars to transact internationally, because after World War II, the U.S. dollar was used in 80% roughly of international transaction, and most importantly for oil, right? And Saudi Arabia, which is the leader of OPEC more or less, has already done sale of oil in yuan, which is the Chinese, but they're also doing in other assets too. And so what that means is at some point, it may not be today, it may not be the end of this year, because I think they still need the U.S. dollar to survive to fight this war for whatever reason. But at some point, all of those treasury bonds and all of the money that's out there international, which is like I don't even know how much money is out there, because it's beyond the amount of money that they've printed in the U.S. There's trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars out there that will eventually come back to the U.S. because nobody wants them. And once that does, that makes every person's U.S. dollars, and by extension Canadian dollars, because we're connected at the hip, worthless, right? And we have printed double what our debt was 3 years ago. Double. So think of it like this. I have $100. I go and buy something, right? You have $100. You buy something. We both have $100 worth of something. If somebody just prints into existence $500, the value of our assets go down, and they can come in and buy that asset that we hold at pennies on the dollar with the amount of money that they printed. That's a very simplified version of what's happening, but that's the general idea. We had X amount of value in Canada, right? If they printed double what our debt was, where is that money going? What did it do? This is one of the reasons we have inflation, and it was so high, but it hasn't dispersed. It's still there. It's still happening. What did that money do? Where did it go? You know what I mean? And the fact is that they are now, because our debt is so high, now they have to pay it back. We're spending more on debt servicing than on healthcare and military at the start of World War III. It's indefensible. And what annoys me most about the Conservatives, they're not saying any of this. Not one politician has talked about war beyond let's defend Ukraine. It's insane.
Segue in with into something a little bit different here. What does Freeland mean? She doesn't think your home should be a financial asset. I want to tackle that one first. What she means is the RCMP article that everybody has been talking about for the last week. She's telling you that's going to be reality. That she's telling you that the police understand what they are talking about when they say the whole country is going to be pissed when we will never own anything. But the
Yeah.
police say we will be unhappy. And Chrissy Freeland is saying, no, 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 you will be happy because it shouldn't be a personal asset. And everybody can have one, and everybody has the same
Yeah. What
people
does that
who,
remind you of?
right?
Communism.
This is literally her being the antagonist, telling you she is coming for your house, she is coming for everything that you have, and the police are expecting you to be upset and to get violent and stupid. And I think this is why when we're having these dark conversations, they're absolutely necessary because we have to get in front of all of this, and it's absolutely possible. We're seeing instances of this, and uh, in for the people that you want to talk more solutions, I'll have a couple of interviews this coming week. I had to reschedule with Maggie Braun, but there's some incredible work being done to extricate communities from this, and there's about to be a tidal wave of informational and learning. And also on Monday, I've got Ivor Cummins is coming on a show, and he's going to explain more in depth. And this is where we need to have these conversations and understandings, because as we spoke last week, Bryce, we can have a revolution or an enlightenment, and they are both predictably going to end up happening very differently, but will to get to the same ends. So that's up to us to decide whether it's going to be an enlightenment or a revolution. And I don't want to take part in a revolution. I would way rather take part in an enlightenment. But during a time of enlightenment, you have to get into the mud pits.
Yeah, I would much prefer a renaissance to a revolution, but at the end of the day, we might be not be the people who get to decide that, because at the end of the day, these people are putting into policies that are destroying the country intentionally, right? So at some point, it's going to be too late for a renaissance, and it's going to have to be a revolution. I prefer not to do a revolution, but at the end of the day, I'm not just going to submit to government control of my body and my people and my community and my family and all of that. It is not going to happen, which is why I'm sure I'm a threat to these people, because I'm not an idiot, and most of the people running the planet are. So, I kind of like to throw this idea in as well, right? We are basically only united in the sense of opposition to a lot of these ideas, right? But we also have to be united in the idea of that we have to be able to build something better, right? I like to talk about that goal of space travel, right? Because what Elon Musk is doing, despite kind of the dystopian technologies that he's really involved in, putting that aside for a second, what he's ultimately talking about is a spacefaring civilization, right? So do you know about the Kardashev scale?
No.
No. So Kardashev scale was created, I think, in the 40s or the 30s. I can't remember when it was created. It was a long time ago anyway. And basically, it gave different levels of civilization. So a type 1 civilization used all of the energy of one planet. A type 2 civilization used all of the energy of one solar system. Type 3 was the galaxy. Type 4 was the universe. And there's been additional ones beyond that for multidimensional, all this other stuff, right? But basically, a spacefaring civilization is a type 1 minimum civilization, so that you have enough energy in, like, fusion or fission or whatever, that you can go and take the resources out of your solar system. We're not even a type 1 civilization. We're not even a spacefaring civilization yet. Setting a probe out once every 50 years or whatever doesn't even count. Okay, we have space travel. We can get into space. And this should really tell you, too, what the goal of our leaders are, right? We've had space travel for more or less 60 years, right? Because it was the 60s that we shot stuff into space, got satellites out there, right? What have they done since? War, control, economic ridiculousness, more war. Like, all of their goals, all of the things that they have done is like, give me more money and more control, and you guys shut up. That's all of their policies, right? Are we getting into space? Are we fixing hunger? Are we fixing all of these innumerable problems that we can talk about? No. So clearly, the people in charge are not actually having our species and our civilization at the forefront of their priorities, right? And so if they are the wrong people, what do we as a civilization want out of our civilization? How are we going to be organized so that we don't have to kill each other just to survive, right? Because that's ultimately one of the problems, that this system is designed that somebody has to fail, because you can't create money at interest and have everybody succeed, because there isn't enough money to pay the interest in society, right? So somebody has to lose. And to bring this back to the financial thing, one of the things that they're doing, and one of the reasons that they're buying gold at historic levels, is once that dollar fades into nothingness and irrelevance, they're going to pay it all off with gold and silver, because gold and silver will be worth so much more, and they'll back the central bank digital currency with gold and silver. It will always go back to gold and silver, because that's where things started.
I'm going to dummy this last minute down for a sec, and say that all bureaucracy, all government lives to expand itself, to expand the cronyism in order to harvest more and more and more from you, the earners, the slaves, the wealth generators, and they are the parasites. And continuing down this progression, I see a comment in here. Just don't buy precious metals, but just keep your bucks. Well, that buck might buy you a stick of bubble gum today. Next week, it's going to buy you a quarter of a stick of bubble gum, but that same amount of dollars worth of gold that you bought today is going to buy you 10 packs of government bubble gum. So this, at the end of the day, all of these agencies, all of these bureaucracies are just nothing more than a syndicate designed to extract and bleed us dry. And I think that Canada is in a unique position that when we stop the bleeding, there is no nation that will be able to heal itself faster than Canada.
Yeah, and I think one of the key reasons for that is our natural resources. So we are extremely blessed in Canada, not only because we have a huge country, but we have a massive amount of arable land. We have really, really good land. It's on one of the top tiers on the planet. We have unbelievable amounts of resources that are not being extracted properly for a variety of reasons. We won't get into those right now, but we have them is the important part, right? And if these morons that are running the country right now were not in there, and somebody with actual intelligence and organizational skill enough to use the resources that we have lots of potential for growth, right? The problem that we face isn't a resource one, it is an organizational one, right? And this is why I'm so confident that we can make changes. Will we make the necessary changes? Well, that's debatable. I'm not so sold on that, but we can, and that's the important part, right? And if that decision is made, we have the ability to change our world and have a golden age, right? What we face is basically comes down to this. Do you want a golden age or do you want a dark age? Because if we let the people that are in control now win, that's a dark age. If we get together and we make decisions, kick these idiots out and say, no more you idiots, we're going to figure it out ourselves. Thank you very much. And 100% we would have a golden age, because this would be the next level of organization for our species and our civilization, is that we're working together instead of against each other and against ourselves.
100%. And this is, to me, it's about stopping the bleeding.
Question.
Pardon me?
Sorry, there's a good question by Carrie. How much of our resources does China own? Great question, and this is why this is a great question. So I want to say 2012, might have been 2014. There's a Stephen Harper, which I did not like for a variety of reasons, but this is one of the major ones. He signed into law the FIIPA, which is essentially the Foreign Investment partnership agreement. Basically, it was an agreement with China that they could invest in Canada. And so China has bought up a huge amount of our resources. They've done that in the States. They've done that all over the world. But the Chinese economy is collapsing right now. So something soon is going to happen with that. So either they're going to try and leverage all of what they have bought internationally, or they're going to have to sell those assets off, which gives them the opportunity for us to buy them back. But Trudeau was complicit in this. So he sold one of our major, I want to say mining companies. It was Nexen something. It might have been an energy company, or it was some sort of resource company. And so there's a huge amount of Chinese money in Canada. So that is a problem, right? But ultimately, they're not here. We are. So unless they invade, which is possible, and there's an argument to be made that they eventually will. But if they don't or can't, we still have these physical assets here. And if they can't use them or utilize them, they're ours, right? And one of the ideas of a sovereign nation is that you have control over within your borders of what you do with your resources. And so eventually that's going to be a conversation that we need to have.
That's eventually going to get us to the conversation that any deal struck under the guise of fraud is no longer a deal, and our country does not have to abide by that.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, all of these fraudulent corporations that have come in and assumed ownership of our resources and materials and roads and infrastructure under a fraudulent government, that's ours. That is our shit, and it's time to take some of that back. Another question.
And that might be that revolution that we're talking about.
It might be. I guess this kind of leads into the question that had just popped up on the screen. Maybe you can tackle that one.
Yeah, also a good question. And so to give you guys, let me preface this answer with a little bit of context, okay? So it's generally considered and known knowledge, and nobody's ever verified this for like 50 years or whatever it is, but it's generally accepted that the U.S. has the biggest stockpile of gold in existence, which is roughly 8,000 tons. I think it's like 8,200 tons or something like that. But think of that as a benchmark for a second, okay? So last year, all of the central banks bought 1,100 tons of gold. This year, they're on pace for about 1,200 to 1,400, depending on how much they buy. So that should give you an idea of how much gold is being bought. And that doesn't include private, and that doesn't include the Eastern authoritarians. China is buying gold like it's going out of style. Everything that they can get their hands on, they're even doing an arbitrage, which is essentially they're setting the price of gold higher in the SCO, which is the Shanghai Commodity Exchange, I think, or the something I can't remember the name of it. And they're buying it higher than what you can sell it for in the West. So they're moving huge amounts of precious metals to the east. After that stuff goes to the east, it'll never come back. And this is why I keep telling people, if you have the ability to do so, precious metals is the best investment you can make right now. Bar none, 100%, nothing even comes close. But beyond that, and to the question, the COMEX, which is one of the main exchanges in the West, or in the US specifically, is being drained. There used to be about 140 million ounces of silver. I can't remember what it was down to recently, but I heard a number that it was down to 50%, and that was a year or two ago. So that is being drained. So to that question, yes, eventually, and this is why I keep saying this, that eventually people are going to realize that, oh shit, we're running out of gold and silver, I better get some. And that's when prices are going to spike and take off. Like, it's not unreasonable to expect 5,000, 10,000. Some people are even saying like $40,000 gold. And typically silver is a percentage of that. Like the gold silver ratio is typically about 25 to 40 in that range somewhere. Right now it's 86. So like silver is a massively undervalued commodity right now, but eventually it's going to spring. And so it went up 10% last week.
There you go. And I know you're not into real estate, but I think this is a question that people are very curious about. Residential real estate. Should they sell it or should they rent it out?
The short answer is yes. The longer answer is it depends. So if you own it outright, keep it because it's a hard asset. And if you can cash flow it, it's valuable, right? So if it's a multi-family asset, you're probably in a better shape because there's more cash flow. And with people having to sell their house, and so let me say this too, is that bankruptcies and mortgage delinquencies have skyrocketed in the last couple of weeks because people are out of money. They can't make the payments anymore. And this is exactly what happened just before 2007. So I'm telling you now that sometime in the next few months, maybe 6 months, 10, end of the year at the absolute most, we're going to see that flip in the market. I think personally, this is my prediction, because of all of this economic data that's going in the wrong direction. And when that happens, what happened in 2007 is going to happen again, but on a whole other scale, because the difference between then and now is that people now have massively increased debts. Like there is so much more debt because like if you think even 2007, you in the US you get houses for like a couple $100,000, right? Now they're like 600,000. They're like triple the price, and the interest rates are like triple what they were then, right? So every time that they've crept up those interest rates, it increases those monthly payments, and that's what people can't afford, right? And so if they have to move out of their house that they own, Well, they got to try to live somewhere. You're either in a tent or you're in a hospital or whatever, or you're going to try and find a place to rent. And now that they've brought in so many illegal immigrants and legal immigrants as well, well, where are you going to live, right? So if you're able to rent something out, you'll probably be okay because somebody's going to have to pay for that. But the opposite argument to that is that who's going to be able to afford $3,000 a month for a 1-bedroom? It's absolutely insane that Justin Trudeau still has his job. Like, this is literally the fault of his stupid policies over the last 8 years that have contributed to this, right? In any other job in the private sector, if you destroy every KPI, which is key performance indicator for those that don't know that term, it's a term to track certain things that are relevant to a job title. So if everything in a country that matters is going down, you just get to be like, hey, I'm just going to stay on for another couple of years because I feel like it, even though everybody hates my guts. It's insane.
It's insanity is unsustainable. That is, I cling to that, and the more educated our society becomes, and when I say that in that context, it's not just Canadian society; it's a global society that has been waking up to all of this because they have overplayed their hands on so many levels, and they have proven themselves over and over repeatedly. And again, yesterday, or today, whatever it was, with this non-confidence vote, that there is no trust left to be had, and this is why we are seeing. It's taken some time. And this is something that I mentioned, 3 years ago. The resistance, people opposing this waking up, this was very, very new, and we were far away from being organized. But we have gotten through that learning curve so quickly, and there are so many initiatives, brilliant people that are coming up with solutions in different tentacles, different, in specific occasional realms. We're having some victories, and it's the motors are not firing on all cylinders or in the right order yet, but we're seeing a lot of that. And this is going to be, I'm just going to pull up, because we're just down to the last 2 minutes here, but I'm going to put out a homework assignment for everybody so that they understand my guest on Monday. And I think you're going to appreciate this guest as well, Bryce, and it'll give us something to talk about next week as well. But this is Ivor Cummins created this flow sheet, I guess, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's like a mind map.
Mind map, yeah. And some
George
of
Gammon
the
is really good. Anybody, so that guy on the top there on the left is George Gammon. Highly recommend anybody that wants to really try to understand the financial side of things that's happening right now. That guy is really, really smart, very intelligent guy. Really knows his stuff.
and that's why I wanted to give everybody a chance that's watching here tonight to get an early taste of what we're going to be hearing from on Monday. Because and when I first watched this yesterday and I reached out to him immediately, it was because of this flow chart, and it really nailed it. All of the peak wedge issues outlined, the war on farmers, anti-meat, COVID-19, all of these things that create the wedge issues, but it all then turns into the same things. Everybody thinks that we're fighting a different fight, a different beast, but at the end of the day, they're all designed to weaken society and take us to this globalist utopia. He's been able to put it together and articulate it on how exactly this system is operating. And I'm really, really super excited to have him joining us on Monday. Unfortunately, he's in Europe, so this is going to be like an 11 o'clock in the morning or noon show in Alberta Central Time. But this guy is the bee's knees when it comes to understanding how this corruption takes place and happens. So that is really, I think, where we have to get to understanding. It's not it's not rocket science. It is literally all laid out, and it is simplified, and we just have to get more organized and more coordinated, get our personal houses in order. That means prepping, making sure you've got the TP and the rice and the beans, the 90 days of groceries and all of those things.
Yep.
And then it's, defunding the banks, and then it's the precious metals and understanding how all of this is interconnected, and it's all critically important to understanding this war that we are in, and it is absolutely unmistakably a war. But this is the good part of going through the doom and the gloom, is you get to the light.
Yeah, and so let me leave off on something that's a little bit more positive, because I think this is a really important thing and structure that you can implement in your life today. Okay, so you have a hand. There's 5 fingers on it. What's bigger, 5 or 1? What's bigger, 5 or 1?
Oh, obviously 5.
1, because they're
One to put
united.
together.
This came from Game of Thrones, but it's just as relevant now as it is in a fantasy world. When you're united and you're working together, that fist is a lot more powerful than an open-handed slap, right? And if you have just 5 people that you can work together, it doesn't matter what you do at this point. All that matters is you do something. Pick a problem, pick a goal, pick a thing that you want to prepare for, or do. Talk to a leader, like literally doesn't matter. Literally does not matter what you do at this point. Do something and do it with somebody else, right? Because nobody gives a shit if one person says something. They will care if a whole bunch of people say the same thing. They're really angry about it. That's why they don't want us organized. And this is why I keep driving this point home. The only thing that they care about is us being aware and organized enough to oppose them, right? So you have to be organized, right? Every person in this chat right now, I want you to go and think of somebody in your own life, and there's a couple people in my life that I do this with as well. Go and talk to them and say, I think this is something that we should do together. I know you care about it. I care about it. Let's do something about it. Talk is cheap now. This only matters because if somebody is coming to kick your door in, talking to them is not going to stop them. They're coming to kick your door in, right? So you have to either be prepared or go and kick their door in first. That's what a war
Leave
is.
the
Right?
car keys in your mailbox.
Oh man, I can't believe that, bro. It's unbelievable that they said this, man. These literally a communist thing. Don't defend yourself. Just sit there and give them your keys so that they don't hurt you in your own house. A cop said that. Unbelievable, man. How these people still have a job is beyond me, bro.
Cop with authority said that.
Unbelievable.
And yet the House votes against fixing it. This is absolutely the pinnacle
and this is exactly why I just don't care anymore, bro. I'm like, if these people are coming at me, bro, let's go. You know what
I mean? Thanks, Bryce, for everything, and thank you guys, everybody, for tuning in here. I do. It may be a hot mess, but I'll tell you, it's refreshing being able to not self-censor and have realistic conversations about some of the bad stuff, and make it make sense for others who aren't afraid to have to hear some doom and gloom, because right now it is not a bed of roses out there. So on that note, guys, hit Bryce up on Twitter. You can find him at Bryce Wade on Twitter. Find us
at Bryce Wade BEO.
There you go.
And feel free to reach out to the World Precious Metals if you want to protect yourself with gold and silver. We're a very aware company, good group of people. We'll help you out as much as we can. $5,000 minimum. If you're below that, it's totally okay. You can go and get gold and silver from Silver Gold Bull if you want to spend under $5,000. They're a really good bunch of people as well. Yeah, happy to help anybody. And if you want to reach out to me, feel free on Twitter.
All right, guys, there you have it. From the horse's mouth. Bankers, bandits, bullion, and bucks with Bryce. Y'all have an amazing day, and we will do this again, and who knows what it'll be. Same time, same place next week. Bye for now.